Welcome again. And one of the good things about being host is that I get to tell my own story first. Right? But that's okay. It's the only time I'm going to do it tonight, hopefully. So I wanted to tell a little story about why it's important that we have these sort of events, that we learn from each other, and that we uh, come to some sort of understanding with each other. I'm going to tell the story of my son. He came out, I believe he was in his junior year in high school. He came out to me. I was the last person he came out to. I guess he was a little afraid of my reaction. Um, and to give you a little background, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and so we knew kids in the neighborhood. I had friends that were gay. A lot of them I didn't find out they were gay until way after high school, because again, it's the 70s and the 80s. I graduated in 82. So when Miguel came out to me, my first thought was fear, because I grew up in a time when where especially gay men were being beaten up quite regularly, and straight guys would actually brag about this thing out in the open, and so I was very afraid. So I immediately signed him up in karate. Did not explain to him why. Just immediately, like, he came up to me, and then the next day I put him in karate class, and so he went on for about 6 months. Right, he hated it. He absolutely hated it. And then we talked about it after when he quit. We talked about it afterwards, and he was under the impression that I was immediately trying to man him up, um, and which was the furthest thing from my mind, right? And so if we hadn't talked about it, I think that would have probably drove a wedge into our relationship that neither one of us knew why it was there, right? And I think that happens in society as well. We drive wedges between ourselves, and we may not even have done that intentionally, right? So that's why I believe these things are important, and I'm very happy that you were able to join today. So I'm gonna have you introduce just in the order that you're on my screen. Sam, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and giving us a little taste of your story, please.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Sam. I use he/him pronouns. I live in Austin, and I've lived in Austin for over 20 years, but I grew up in a really, really small town in the southwest corner of Virginia. Um, Very idyllic, conservative, great place to grow up. It's a great place to be from. It's not necessarily a great place to be if you're queer identified. Um, and I I made sure that I kept my understanding of myself to myself until I left there. My first coming out, I called my mom. I was in graduate school in New Mexico, and my mom and I were extremely close, had always been really close. And I called her up in October on National Coming Out Day and told her, I'm like, Mom, I'm gay. And she sobbed uncontrollably for whatever length of time until my father said, we're hanging up now. And I didn't hear from them for weeks. And it scared the fool out of me, because the one thing that I had always had as a constant in my life is my parents' unconditional love. And my mother told me from the time that I'm old enough to remember, there's nothing that you can ever do that will make me stop loving you. I will always love you. But I really questioned it hard whether that was really true, on that bright October day. Fast forward 20 years, and I sent my mom a letter and said, geez, Mom, like, yeah, I got the queer part right, but actually I'm trans. I'm not a lesbian. It's taken me a really long time to understand why I never fit in, and why I didn't feel right or comfortable or normal. And I spent a lot of years being a very performative human being. I fit in, I did what I was supposed to. Um, I was the golden grandchild. And then lo and behold, I've ended up, you know, it wasn't as if I could be in one marginalized circle. I had to go to the farthest ends on that spectrum. And I will say that based on the experience of my first coming out, the second coming out went much, much smoother. My parents, I don't know if they even still understand, but they do accept. And that unconditional love has absolutely been, has proven itself true. It's not always the most comfortable relationship, but they are fantastic. And I'm here in Austin. I have a 15-year-old daughter. She's great. I work for Dell. I transitioned while I was at Dell, and that was a fantastic experience. My life has opened up and blossomed in ways since my transition 4 years ago that I could never have even imagined. And opportunities like this are just feel really fantastic. I would think that they would feel scary, but they don't feel scary because I find so many people coming to me with seeking to understand, and I really enjoy the opportunity to lean in and share and have a really productive conversation.
Thank you. And I forgot to let the attendees know, and I'm putting it in the chat here. If you'd like to ask a question to any of the panelists or vote on questions that you already see there, just follow that link. It's to a separate application called Slido. I will be able to see those questions, and I will ask the most popular questions first. Okay. Sorry about not saying that in the beginning, but we'll go to the next. So then our next panelist is Sabi Sanchez. One of the, and just as a quick little thing, one of the other good things about being the host is nepotism. So Sabi is my daughter. I'm letting you guys know that because she may slip up and call me dad, right? Sorry. So just so you understand what that relationship is. Okay, Sabi, take it away.
Hi guys, my name is Savi. I am 26. I go by the pronouns she, her. Let's see, I don't know where to start, but basically I'm from South Texas, like border Texas. So down there, they're super old school Hispanics, like they don't really agree with this. So I guess when I was younger, I was always told I was very tomboy. Like all my friends were boys. I always hung out with boys. And I lived with my grandma at the time, and she was like, "You're gonna be gay. Like you're so gonna be gay." And I was like, "Oh my God, no, I'm not. Like I'm not gonna be gay. I'm not gonna be gay." And I guess I was so like adamant about like proving her wrong that I never like stepped back to take a look at like if I actually was gay. And there's this one moment I remember my little cousin saying, "It's okay to say girls are attractive. It's okay, like that doesn't make you gay." And I was like, "Okay, cool, that's good, that's good. I can say girls are hot." And I totally like it's okay. I'm still straight, right? So I go on, dating guys and everything. And I actually started to realize, I guess, more when I moved to Austin, when I came to live with my mom and dad, which are my aunt and my uncle. And being here, being surrounded by a lot of more people, I'm like eclectic people, I guess you could say, like different types, people that are not just one-minded, thinking inside the box type of people. So when I finally got over here and I started to see like how out here it was more like, oh, you could actually like girls and girls were holding hands, guys and guys were holding hands, like guys were doing their makeup. And I was like, oh, so it's like it's totally okay for all of this. Like it's not like I'm weird or I'm strange for thinking in my mind like this is okay and being told it wasn't. So then I think around my senior year, I was living with my friend and I came out to her and I was like, I think I like girls. I think I like girls and guys. And I just went from there and went to college, and I found out I do not like guys. I like girls. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to tell my family? Like nobody in my family at this moment knew that I was, or at least that I thought knew that I was gay or that I was interested in girls or anything at that point, right? So I came home for Thanksgiving after my first semester in college, and I was scared. I didn't know what to do, like what to think, like being here. And I hadn't been in my parents' house in about almost a year. So being back for Thanksgiving, and I came out to my sister and I was like, so I think I'm gay. And she was like, oh, that's good. And I was like, it is? It's good. Yeah, it's good. And I was like, I don't know if to tell mom and dad. And she's like, they'll be fine, don't worry about it. But I think I actually waited a few months before I actually told them. And I actually think I remember telling my mom, and my mom was like, finally you realized it. Like, that's why you were so protective over your friends in high school and your girlfriends, and you were always mad about when guys would treat them like totally utter, like, well, can't say it, but like, they would just treat them so bad, and I just never knew why. And lo and behold, I was just a lover of women and wanted everybody to take care of women. So there's my little coming out story with my parents. Fortunately,
Well,
they did. Go
I
ahead.
will ask you to, because you were, so one of the people who had to cancel because they had to work is your partner, Jesse.
Yes.
So can you talk just a little bit about Jesse?
Yeah, so as moving forward in life, right, I found my partner Jesse, and Jesse goes by they them. They are non-binary, which was something that they came out during our time knowing each other. So it's a fairly recent thing, and it's something I struggle with till this day, because it was not only them telling me their identity, but me wondering whether or not my identity is still my identity or not. But at the end of the day, like, which is why I don't identify as a lesbian. I consider myself gay because I'm gonna like what I like, and Jesse's what I like, and that's my person and my other half. And they've taught me so much, and so much more in growing in our community. Although we don't do much in our community, we were so excited to do this part. So it's really bad that they had to work, but I knew they wanted so much to be here and to talk to y'all and to be able to experience something that not a lot of people do and not a lot of people get a chance to be a part of. So
Thank you. Alex, you mind introducing yourself? And Alex is great because we had a person who was not able to make it, another person was not able to make it, and Alex filled in at literally the last minute. So thank you, Alex, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alex Moulton, and I go by he, him pronouns. Guess my coming out story is kind of privileged because I'm a freshman in college, so I'm very young still, and grew up in this era where there's kind of like a gay revolution, like part two from the 70s and all that stuff. So it was never really, I mean, it was because heteronormativity is still a thing, but it was never really that big of an issue to be gay when in the circles that I surrounded myself with in my school, my family, things like that. However, in middle school, I did have a lot of internalized homophobia just because didn't like what I was feeling. So I was like, let's just hate it. Which is very sad to look back on. And some of the things that I said, I was like, I should never have said that. It made people around me, like some of my queer friends around me, who I didn't know at the time were gay, because they were uncomfortable to come out to me because of some of the things I was saying. And I feel bad because I can never take them back. So that was a very, very rough point in my life. Still, even growing up in this kind of era, it was still just like, yikes. I was not a very good, gay person. But the person who really changed everything for me was my brother, my older brother. He's also gay, and he came out to me first, which was a huge honor for me because he and I are very close, but that just brought us closer because I was like, wow, you felt comfortable confiding this in me. And, I kind of always knew just because he's that kind of guy. I was like, okay, yeah. And he came out to me first, like when he was in middle school. So I was late elementary, and it took him a long time to come out to my family. And then when he finally came out to my family, I realized that their reactions were good. And I was like, okay. So after that, again, I was still figuring myself out. So I was like, cool. Yeah, my brother can be gay. Live your best life. I'm still going to be in the closet, internalize, hate myself, all that. And then high school rolls around. I was like, I'm getting some really peculiar feelings, and now I'm actually addressing them. And I didn't come out to my family despite knowing that they were very accepting of my brother and just everything about him and just, he's amazing and all that. And I was like, okay, I know that they're accepting, but I'm still not going to come out. So I didn't come out for like probably a year and a half, which again is a very short time in the span of some people come out. So again, I recognize that privilege there, but I finally came out and I was like, okay. My family was like, something my mom said was, I always knew with Elliot, my brother, but I never knew with you. And I was like, don't know how to take that, but thanks, mom. Like, love you too. So she's probably my rock through all this and has been, and she's one of the best allies, which is a controversial term because some people think they are allies just because they have a gay best friend or something. But she's actually a true ally, and she's amazing and so accepting and everything. So I think that's really it for me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Lana, if you don't mind taking a swing at the introduction, please.
Sure. Well, I'm Lana Stone. I think I'm like the oldest one here. So Chuck, I've got you beat by a few years.
I'm not sure, but we'll argue about that later.
Well, when you said the year you graduated, that gave it away because I graduated in 78. So.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I am Lana Stone. I recently moved to Georgetown from Austin about 3 years ago. I was in Austin for about 25 years. So like Sam said, Austin is amazing. And I think it was Sam, right? Sam, yes, you live in Austin now. And I think Sabi also said that Austin was kind of a great factor in helping you see that there were other ways to be, right? Where you could be yourself. But I grew up in a really small Texas town, just very similar to Sam, but not Virginia, but Texas. And in my life, there really were no gay people. There were no gay people. No one talked about being gay. It was just not a thing. So the feelings that I had I never knew where to put those. And I started realizing I was attracted to girls around 5th grade. And so I just never had a place to put those for a very, very, very long time. I ended up going to a Christian university, which was Christian in quotes because it did a lot of damage. There were many nights I drove around wondering how I was going to make it. Not sure if I was going to make it, trying to pray it away. But thank God I moved to Austin after that and went to a couple of UT women's basketball games. And I just said it. There it is. Saw women holding hands. So a lot of women who I thought might be gay too, and they were. So it was like my people. I found a place I can be myself. And this was early when I first moved to Austin. So it was really good to feel that finally. So I came out to one of my best friends who happened to be, I'm a teacher, so my co-teacher. And it was just so easy to come out to her. And there was absolutely no judgment at all, but much love and acceptance. So just kind of grew from there. I met my spouse after, so by the way, that was when I was 37. Didn't come out till I was 37. I met my spouse, Adrian, when I was in 37. Shortly thereafter, I decided not to wait too long because I was ready. I knew what I wanted. I knew who I was, and I was ready to find love and happiness and the kind of life that I wanted to have. So I found her through a personal ad. They do work. And we have been together ever since 1997. So we are married, got married as soon as we could legally. And so my family has been a little bit slower, but not that slow because all I had to do was just be myself and take Adrian with me. And I think they knew all along because I was so old and never been married to a man and all that. So anyway, it's fine. My family is very accepting. We do all the holidays together, or at least we did before COVID, but very accepting. So I'm very happy. I'm glad to be here tonight.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and get started with our first question. I did want to make a quick introduction. Marissa Palmer is, you may see as a panelist. Marissa is actually kind of behind the scenes, helping to engineer this whole, hopefully beautiful thing. Right? So if she's engineering it, it will be beautiful. If I'm doing it by myself, it'll be a fiasco. So just, I get all the blame, she gets all the glory, right? But let's go on, let's shoot for our first question. What advice would you give to younger people who are dealing with questions about their gender or sexuality? And I do realize some of you are still younger people, as far as I'm concerned. But I'll open that question up to whoever would like to answer it first.
Okay, I'm already unmuted, so I guess I'll go. Well, the one thing I wish I would have known is that there's always someone you can talk to, be it a teacher, a friend, pastor. I mean, I know there's not a lot of people out there or religious people out there that are okay with it, but there are some. Luckily, my parents go to a church where their minister or pastor, reverend, what does she go by?
I have no idea.
Well,
That's okay. Just go.
Sandy, Reverend
It's Reverend, yes, Reverend
There
Sandy.
you go.
Reverend Sandy.
That she is very open about that, and like while I actually was cleaning the church for a while and saw a bunch of like all the name tags and the fact that they all had the little pins of like whether they identified as part of the community or not or whatever, and I was just like, it's so cool to be able to hold a relationship with God and still not be judged for it. So the fact that there's always somebody out there that they could go to, making it known would be even more like, if like this, having little sites like this and all that. If this was there when I was younger, it would have been, I think, something really good we could use. Somebody else?
Yes, Sam.
Well, I want to echo Savvy's comment about there's always someone you can talk to. I think that's my experience several times was just this feeling of loneliness. I'm the only person that feels this way, and it's difficult to overcome that perspective. And you know, if you are here participating in this event tonight, it's likely that you may not be the young person. You may be somebody who has a young person in your life, and you can make a soft and welcoming space for those people. You know, there are studies, we have data that show that just having one affirming, welcoming adult can change the shape of someone's self-concept and their reckoning with that self-concept. And to be explicit, it can stop the cycle of self-harm that young people encounter when they are struggling to come to terms with their identity, and particularly LGBTQ youth. And so, you know, educate yourself on ways to make sure that those young people in your life know that you are a welcoming and safe space. And there's more than just one way to do that, but seek out those ways to be an ally. And I would even encourage you to embrace the term advocate. You know, allies are people who identify as friendly and welcoming. Advocates are those who go do something with that friendship and that welcoming.
Right, thank you. Anybody else would like to take that on? Lana?
No, I would echo. I would absolutely echo. If I'd had just one person to talk to, it would have made a world of difference.
All right, thank you. So our next question, are you afraid that the Supreme Court will impact gay marriage in our country?
I'll take that on. Yes.
Sure, I think you're the only married person here.
I'll take that on. Yes. Very afraid. We talk about it a lot, and we're not sure exactly what it would mean if Amy Coney Barrett is, whatever the word is, confirmed and does in fact rule against gay marriage. Does that mean that my marriage would be annulled? Does it mean that moving forward, no one can get, no gay LGBTQI people can get married? I don't know what it would mean, but yes, I'm very, very afraid of that.
And Savi, I know that you're just because I know, right? That you are engaged to Jesse. How do you feel about the future?
It's honestly very scary. Honestly, for Jesse being someone who never really believed in a piece of paper making a special bond between a person, like, what is this, like, I don't know what, making it permanent or whatever, like, it would still suck because those marriages allow people to like adopt kids or other stuff. It's like, if you're not married and y'all decide to adopt, or one decides to have a kid with the sperm donor, the other person is not considered a legal parent if they're not married. It's just so many little things that go into the factor that this, like, people don't understand that it does affect us when it has nothing to do with you. It doesn't affect you in no way. Your marriage is not going to change in any way, but it changed everything for us. And I honestly, it would be very heartbreaking for me to know that I wouldn't be able to get married to the person I want to spend the rest of my life with.
So if I could add on, as an old person, not that old, but older than some of you guys, there are, as I'm sure you know, a lot of rights that come with being married, like, and perhaps some of this has changed in the last few years, and I just haven't kept up. But for example, when we decided to make wills, we knew that we needed to be very explicit in our wills, because otherwise the things that we've built together or owned together may not go to the other person, because if we weren't married, or if that wasn't very explicit. Our Social Security payments, if that's still around, you have the right to get your spouse's Social Security if you're married. So as you get older, you become much more aware of some of these things that really are important as you get older, particularly around money and just security, life security as you grow old.
I don't know if afraid is the exact right descriptor. I'm more pissed off. And it's the idea of using this originalist point of view to say that, this is a legal approach. No, discrimination is not a legal approach. Discrimination is discrimination, and whether it be discrimination against LGBTQ people and their right to love whom they love and identify how they identify, and choose to contractually, obligate themselves with another individual, right, to make that a contractual bond in marriage, or whether it be bodily autonomy. Discrimination is discrimination, inequity is inequity, and those both equal injustice. So yeah, sometimes I sit in fear, but mostly I feel very strong sense of outrage and indignation that we've let the backlash against expanding rights for everyone, swing so far in the other direction, and that we've been that the system has those who understand how to manipulate the system have put us in this situation, right? So I think we're all paying attention now, right? And I think it's important that we all continue to pay attention. And based on early turnout in numbers, that we are having a huge enfranchisement of voters, which I encourage. I think that should be something we all espouse, whether it be, as United States citizens, that everyone should be able to vote. Same opinions, differing opinions, every person should be able to vote and express and be enfranchised in making decisions for everyone.
And this is just kind of a follow-up question because it's become popular on Slido. What are your thoughts on Pope Francis's statement concerning civil unions? I will just chime in really quickly. It's a much different Catholic church than when I was in Catholic altar boy. But that being said, if you have any thoughts on what the Pope has just come out with, please answer now.
I have not read the full story, and so I'm sorry.
I know it's very recent. I just saw it this morning, actually.
But I'm not sure what civil unions, if that goes as far as marriage does. I'm not sure. And furthermore, honestly, the Catholic Church has done a lot of harm to a lot of people. So I'm not all in with that at this point.
Fair enough. Anyone else like to comment on that? Or we can just give the Pope some time. Okay, all right. So how do you think homophobia has impacted your particular mental health or the mental health of those that you love?
I can.
Okay, go, Alex.
Sabi,
go.
do you want to?
No, Alex, go first.
Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, so I've grown up in Austin my whole life, so I wasn't like Sam or Lana, where it was like small town, conservative to like big liberal gay city, I've always grown up here. Granted, it's changed a lot, but I've always grown up here, so I was never really surrounded by external homophobia that much. There was still, parts of my family are very conservative. I don't talk about them very much. So I never had a lot of external, but like I said earlier, I had a lot of internal homophobia, and that was detrimental to not only myself, but also the surrounding people, because I was that external homophobic force, which was, again, like I said, it's terrible to look back on, but it did a lot of damage to myself because I was like, I couldn't come to terms with who I was and who I liked and all this stuff. So I felt I was invalidating myself, but then I was also hurting people around me who needed to feel validated and needed that one person that we were talking about earlier, and I was not there for them. And looking back, that also hurt subconsciously. But it was still like, wow, I was that bad person. I wasn't there for the people who needed me, and it still sucks to look back on, and it still hurts, and I'm still trying to come to terms with who I was in middle school, which, that's the point where everyone's kind of developing and everything. But that's not an excuse for my behavior. So it wasn't good. In short, not good. So, yeah.
Thank you. Sabi?
For my side, I did have a little bit of that internal homophobia, as y'all heard from my introduction, towards when I was younger. I did kind of beat myself up a lot, and I do wish I would have had someone tell me sooner that it was okay, or maybe move sooner with my mom and dad. I would have probably known that it was okay sooner and been much open sooner. But fast forward a little bit to my first LGBT relationship. I lived in South Texas, and like I said, down there it's super old school, very, very old school. So when I came out to my bio dad, I actually got kicked out of my house, and I had to get an apartment, and we ended up U-hauling, typical lesbians U-hauling, right? But we had to, and it kind of sucked. I'm a very affectionate person, so if I have a partner or whatever, I want to be holding your hand, want to shout it out from the rooftop that you're my partner and I love you. So when I was with my ex, being in the Valley, a lot of people would just stare. The fact that it was two girls holding hands, two girls showing affection to each other. It shouldn't be that way. I feel like it shouldn't matter what other people are doing around you. I mean, unless people are stealing or something bad, but this has no effect on you whatsoever. Kids are gonna know from a young age. They're gonna see whatever they want in school. I mean, it's not like you can keep your kids from this, the people that want to hide it from them. might as well educate your kids and be able to be there so that stuff like this and stigmas and statistics are not bad for us. Like, we need, I just feel like down there, I guess past Corpus Christi, the border, the checkpoint, anything down there, they were very judgy, which kind of caused me to like clam up and not be able to come out. So I guess getting more places, I don't know how to say it, like more stuff into, yeah, into places where there's not, so that everybody can feel safe. So there's always something in every city or whatever. That would be great, because it sucked not being told that I was normal, or not knowing that I was normal, and basically being told that whatever I was feeling is wrong and bad.
Thank you. Sam, I see you've unmuted. Did you want to make a comment?
Yeah. Yes. So I would like for everyone to imagine a time in your life when you've had a secret and you've had to hide something. And think about, and from and it may just be from a person or a family member, maybe a sibling, maybe you were a kid and you broke a dish and you were terrified of what your mom was going to say about it. But I want you to remember that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you had a secret and when you had to hide. And think about how much of your time at that point, like how much you thought about it and how much it impacted you, and how long you had that secret. Now I want you to think about having something that you feel like you have to hide all day, every day, 365 days a year. That can be what it's like to walk through the world experiencing homophobia or transphobia. Not only do you have to deal with struggling with feelings of invisibility and self-concept, but to know you have a secret and to feel like it's a dirty secret and you have to hide it, and the shame that goes along with that. I don't know that I will ever unpack or uncover the entirety of mental health impact that I experienced. Alex, you talk about middle school. We didn't have middle school where I was. We were too small. We had elementary school and we had high school, but the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years, man, they were hell. They were just hell. And, as a kid who was trans, who didn't know he was trans, trying to figure out where to sit at lunch and being ostracized from the girls because I didn't know how to fit in, and being ostracized from the boys because we'd all started puberty and I wasn't allowed to sit at their table anymore. I still remember the trauma of just from trying to sit down at the lunch table. And I didn't have a name for why I didn't fit in or why I felt shameful about it. So that's I would encourage you to sit in that space just a little while and then try to imagine what it's like to experience that day in and day out.
Thank you.
Not to mention, hold on.
Go
Sorry.
ahead, Alex. Yeah,
Not to mention, Sam, the struggle of using bathrooms. Which one? Having a mental map of gender neutral bathrooms and family bathrooms. Yep.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all. Our next question is, what are the discriminatory, I'll get this word, I swear to God I will. What are the discriminatory behaviors members of the LGBTQ plus community face daily, which prevent them from experiencing the same benefits as white heterosexuals? I think there's a lot in that question, right?
Let's amend it. Let's amend it and add cis there, white cisgender heterosexuals.
Thank you. So since you've amended the question, Sam, would you like to answer it?
Lana's unmuted. Lana's going first.
Okay.
I'll just share what I have experienced with my sister-in-law, who I love dearly, and she is clueless, I guess, about how the things that she has said all these years. For 25 years, she's been married to my brother, so we've been in each other's lives, but it's constant. oh, so and so is getting married. My niece is getting married. Oh, they're having a baby, and they're having a baby shower, and that they're having a wedding shower, and just so much heterosexism that just, and never a question about what do you think about that, or how is this showing up in your life, or what are you and Adrian going to do? So it's just a constant that's just in my face, and it has been our whole lives, right? I mean, that's the water we swim in. So it's just, it's a lack of awareness, or, and it's painful after a certain amount of time. It's like, I'm just done. I don't want to have to hear about it anymore, because it is the norm and it's not my norm.
Would anyone else like to answer that question?
Well,
Actually, I'm sorry, this is Marisa. I'm wondering if somebody on the panel would feel comfortable. I did put it in the chat explaining what psi is to some of our audience members.
Thank you, Marisa.
as the trans panelist, shall I jump in there? So cisgender is the opposite of transgender. So someone who is cisgender, their self-identity, the gender as whom they identify, matches their assigned gender at birth. And so I'm transgender. I was assigned female at birth, but I identify as male, so I'm transgender. If you were assigned female at birth and you identify as female, then you are cisgender. Does that help?
Yes, I believe so. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Sure.
Okay, so speaking of cisgender, the very next question, and I'm going to believe that Sam, you'll want to answer this. Can you speak? And you may have already answered it, to be honest with you. Can you speak about your feelings around society's tendency to auto-assign cisgender?
Sure. As with anything, we make assumptions based on our experiences and the ways in which we have been accustomed to. That is how our muscle memory works, right? We literally create neural grooves that based on the pathways that get used over and over again. And so, depending on how we are, the experiences and how we are socialized, it's kind of a natural thing. Chuck, you were talking earlier about pronouns and having muscle memory around pronouns and having to relearn or teach yourself new ways to think about pronouns and verbalize them. And so it's I think that it's not unexpected, perhaps a little disappointing. And the way to overcome it is visibility, right? The way to overcome it is to provide everyone experiences with things that are outside of what they might have in there that's right in front of them, right? We can all only see out of our own eyes and no one else's. And we can only see what we have in our surroundings or what we expose ourselves to. And so the more diverse of experiences that any one person has, then the more exposure they will have and the less assumptions they will make, because they will see the variety of options in front of them. It took me so long to understand my transness because I just was not exposed to transness. Even living in Austin, it was just not there. I think about one of the ways that I understood the fact that I was attracted to women was seeing Glenn Close on TV in a movie playing Greta Cammermeyer and kissing her girlfriend and being like, "Pow," right? But it literally took that in your face moment for me. And so, it's, my feelings are, that's just what humans do. And the way to address that is to have visibility of all sorts of identities and orientations, and to normalize conversations around identities and orientations. That's how you overcome an assumption of a normative. And when we talk about normatives, we talk about cis normative or het normative. That's what that question was talking about. It's like, what are your feelings around this normative society that we live in? And my feelings is that we are doing a better job than we have in the past rejecting the assumption of normativity. A normal is a setting on the dryer, right? There is no normal. Normal is the average of the full spectrum of humanity. So that's the, and you can address that in your own life by, questioning and challenging in conversations when someone makes an assumption about an orientation or identity or something being right or normal. It's fun to do, and it can stimulate some very interesting conversations. For the rest of the panelists, we addressed the previous question about homophobia that people face, and what are some of those things. And I don't know if everyone had a chance to address that, or if anybody wanted to explain that further. We kind of hit that and ran off. So I don't know if everyone got a chance to share their thoughts or feelings on it.
Well, just a lot of shame is what I felt from 5th grade all the way to age 37, and probably a little beyond. But I was a well-liked child, and a well-liked middle schooler, and a well-liked high schooler, and a well-liked college student. So, and I was able to, I guess, push down that shame and that internalized homophobia because I was kind of popular and I was resilient. I do have some resilience. So, but I think had I not been of a strong character, and I don't know exactly how to describe that. I don't think strong character is the right word, but I do have resilience for some reason. Perhaps that's why. But if I had not been able to be popular or able to somehow move forward, I think it really would have, I'm not sure I would have lived. And again, during college, there were some times when I didn't want to live. So yeah, that internalized, mine was a lot of internalized because I was not out. And so no one really knew that I was gay. So no one was saying homophobic slurs or comments to me, but it was very much internalized.
Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in? And I apologize if I moved on too quickly.
Us.
Sam,
Alex?
Sam, you're unmuted. Do you want to go first?
No, you're going first, buddy.
Okay. I know I spoke earlier on this topic, but what Sabi was saying about like she can't hold his hand or something like that in public, it jogged my memory. And there is a distinction between internalized homophobia and external homophobia. Sorry, but there's also subtle versus overt homophobia. In this area, again, Austin, very progressive in the sense of LGBTQ plus rights and activism and like visibility, things like that. Very, very progressive in that sense compared to the surrounding area. So overt homophobia isn't too big of an issue here. Yes, there are areas where, very blatant hate crimes and violence exist, whether that be in Austin itself or other neighboring cities and towns. But it is that subtle homophobia that I feel like I've experienced. I'm sure all of you guys have as well. Like Sabi was saying, and Lana, you were also saying, and I'm pretty sure Sam has too. It's you don't feel comfortable holding your partner's hand in public because you still get those stares where it's like, ew, why are you holding a man's hand or a woman's hand or a non-binary person's hand? Like, why are you doing that? And that's jarring and upsetting and saddening because it's just like, I want to love this person and I want to show it. And I want to show them that I'm okay holding their hand in public, but I can't because I'm getting stares and it makes me feel gross. And I've experienced that with my partner, Grayson. I don't like holding his hand in public or being all touchy-feely in public because I feel like I get those stares. And it makes me sad because I'm like, I love you. I want to show it, but I can't. So yeah, it's like, I feel like I can't do that because there's still all these subtle little acts of homophobia, whether they're conscious or subconscious, that happen. And it's just like, well, we've made progress, but we still have so much more because you still get those weird side glances and you still get those long stares. And it's like, okay, guys, I get it. I'm gay. Like, calm down. So, yeah.
You know, those subtle things, um, they have outsized impacts, right? Because they might be subtle, but we all understand the history and what the potential is, right? So we talk about, you know, homophobia and like what is that experience like? Well, imagine just discrimination, anything from physical violence to emotional violence to being denied housing to being denied access to financial resources. You know, in Texas, in the state of Texas, there are no anti-discrimination protections on the basis of orientation or gender identity. So I could walk in a bank tomorrow and they could say, oh, you're trans. Or we assume or think you're queer, and therefore we're not loaning you money. You can't get a car loan, you can't get a house loan, you can't have a checking account here. And they could do that legally under the law. They could just say, see you bye. And while I'm talking about a place of privilege, like I have lived in an extreme place of privilege, you know, I own a home, I am well employed, I have supportive friends and family, and have not run in that situation. That is not the case for a large portion of the community. And when folks need access to housing, and and landlords cannot be held accountable, it when you are marginally housed, that is the only thing that matters. And so it's things I don't think we even think about and are conscious of what happens in a day-to-day basis for someone who is in a different circumstance than we are. So it's not necessarily something that is, you know, you see a homophobic chant or rant or see a slur, you know, a homophobic slur slung at someone. It's the, oh, you can't have the things that you need in your life, food, shelter, a job. Like, you know, we're just going to deny you access to those because we look at you and we are making an assumption that, you know, you're queer or you're trans, or God forbid you are a Black trans woman. You know, you have a higher rate of murder. Your life expectancy as a Black trans woman in the United States is less than 40 years. That's the experience of homophobia and transphobia in our country. Life expectancy less than 40 years.
Thank you. Marissa?
That's less. I just wanted to say, I want everybody to think about that. That's about the life expectancy. That's maybe just 10 years added on to the life expectancy in like medieval times.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it is not because it is because of violence. Let's be explicit. Like their life expectancy is so low because of violence, not because of something that they are, not because of who they are or something they are doing or not taking care of themselves.
And it's rarely covered in media or news or anything, so not very many people are aware of it. And so when it is, people are like, oh my God, and it's one like Black trans woman's experience or like act of violence against her, and they're like, oh, it's just one like isolated incident, when it's not, because it's not being covered, or it's being covered on a mass scale so people are aware. So that's another problem, is coverage and erasure of trans individuals and like intersectional identities within the LGBTQ plus community.
Really quick before we move from the subject, I did want to mention a little thing that I experienced, or that I remembered about experiencing homophobia. Jesse wears guy clothes, which for us, we just see it as clothes. If I like that pink shirt over there and I like that red shirt over there, I'm gonna get it from either or. Like, but getting stares, like Jesse has short hair, so they always stare at them like, is it a boy? Is it a girl? Like, are they 13? Are they 20? You know, it's just like little things like that. So those side glances could really, like, because of stuff like that, gives Jesse so much anxiety to like go to the store. Like before like meeting me, Jesse bought most of their clothes online just because of the fear of having people like stare at you because you're looking for an extra small size shirt, because men's size shirts are not fitting, but they are comfortable and loose, and like, you know, they don't show the form of your body so much like a woman's shirt does. So that's something that I do think that there's a lot of people that just need to understand that their clothes is clothes. It doesn't matter if it's a dress, shorts, pants, tank top, or whatever. Like, people are gonna wear it. It's style. It's a costume. If they want to like cosplay every day of their life, like, it shouldn't matter what they're wearing and if what they have in their clothes, basically. So yeah, that was it on that for me.
Thank you.
So- Chuck,
Go
real
ahead.
quick, just so folks know, I'm sure most of folks, UT has a wonderful gender studies program, and I believe every semester they have a gender clothing swap exactly for that reason, because people going through transition who identify as non-binary have trouble dealing with the hostile, often, environment of buying clothes, which is something that I don't think most cisgender people experience.
Marissa, can you put a link for that in the chat, please?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And not just picking out the clothes and what someone wears, but which dressing room someone is afforded the opportunity to use. It's hard.
I think one of the greatest things, and I won't, because we don't do shout outs to restaurants or whatever, but there's a restaurant here in Georgetown. When they designed it, they did not put in male bathrooms or female bathrooms. They just put in bathrooms, and each one has a door. It has its own stall. It has equipment everybody can use. So I found that to be such an easy answer to what at the time a few years ago seemed to be a question that people could not figure out. If somebody's trans, do they go to this bathroom or that bathroom? And everybody except for the trans community seemed to have an opinion on it, to me. So and I thought, wow, what a simple solution, right, to a supposed problem.
Why would they ask the trans community about something that's not really a problem? They didn't want input from a community that it would actually impact. They were too busy fear mongering about the violence of the bathroom. And let's be clear, the only violence that happens in bathrooms are violence, not the only, but the predominant violence is violence against trans people, not against non-trans people.
Exactly. So I hate to bring you guys back to middle school. God knows I don't want to go back. But here's our next question. So what is something that your teachers did that made you feel seen or supported, if anything? While you think about that, I'll take my host prerogative and tell another story. When my son came out, he let one of his counselors know at the school. When he came out, he just came out all the way. He wasn't hiding it from some people or anything like that. So every time he had a problem at school, he had a counselor that would ask him, well, basically, how are you doing with your homosexuality today? He says, well, that's great, but my problem is in math, right? So, it's good that his counselor cared, but my son would rather have, not every single problem I have is about my sexuality. So, having said that, is there anybody who'd like to answer? What teacher actually let you be seen?
Considering I'm like kind of fresh out of this stage of my life, it's all pretty upfront here. Granted, she wasn't a middle school teacher. She was my high school AP English teacher. Hands down, one of the best, just all like in general teachers, but like people in general, because her room, it was like a joke among the faculty and the students, but it was a joke rooted in like reality, where her room was where like any kid just went to kind of relax and feel safe, because one, it was just a really comfortable room to be in, but two, she was such an accepting person that anyone could go in there and just be like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna chill out here. And she'd be like, yeah, let's just chill. And she would have so many like organic conversations just about like LGBT issues and how she could be better, what she needed, like what we needed from her, what she could do for us. And then it wasn't always like based around like what she could do. It's kind of just like, let's vent, talk about it. What can we do? Because it, like your son, Chuck, it's not everything is centered around your issues as a gay person or as a queer person. It's, you know, I'm a human being. I'm more than my sexuality. Let's just chill. Let's just hang. God, she was amazing. She was the teacher sponsor for a GSA, and she did so much for that.
I know my son was part of GSA, but can you explain what GSA is for everybody else?
So most schools define it as gay straight alliance, but I don't know if more schools are doing it like this, but we kind of change it to gender sexuality alliance because we're like, there's more than gay and straight. Let's kind of broaden the horizons here. And it's kind of how my school had it was basically just this club / organization situation, generally after school where LGBT plus people can go. And you generally are trying to educate more people on LGBT issues, whether that be in the school by putting up like flyers, posters, informational things like that, or it's a place where people can go and feel safe and seen and have constructive conversations or just rant sessions about things that happened, things that affect us, especially at like high school, middle school level where people are still developing and bullying is rampant because puberty, people don't like people that are different when you're in puberty and you have hormones flying off the walls. So that's kind of what it was. And she was the best because we had a few teacher sponsors for the GSA because let's just say some of them weren't very successful. And she was hands down the best one. She contacted the principal and assistant principal, and she was the main liaison for that. So none of us had the pressure of being like, "Hi, I'm this like freshman, don't know grammar, like let me be professional." So she was very, very helpful with all of that. So that was kind of my best experience with the teacher in that part of my life.
Thank you. Sam?
So I'm projecting a little bit, but I'm thinking that someone might be a teacher and asking this from their own perspective.
I think you may be correct.
There is the Human Rights Campaign has a program called Welcoming Schools, and Anti-Defamation League has a program as well, and I'm blanking on the name. Joe, you might remember it. There are two programs that are fantastic. Anti-Defamation League is around anti-bullying. Welcoming Schools is also around anti-bullying, but I know it has specific focus around LGBTQ youth and ways to have the conversation that are inclusive, and language and Welcoming Schools is an entire program. I know more about it, but I know there are several out there, and that could be, a fruitful place to go and gather ideas, or even to talk to your principal about becoming and having the Welcoming School program, at your school. And I will say another means that you can communicate is the things that you include in your classroom that can communicate that are nonverbal, whether that be rainbow stickers or things that allude to diversity, equity, and inclusive messages. And that will, kids see a lot. Kids, they see a lot of detail. They're paying attention, and someone who is struggling with this I will guarantee you will see that and recognize it for the opening to have that conversation. So you can be intentional with those things and make an impact.
Very good. Thank you.
No place for hate. Thank you very much, Marianne.
Does anyone else like to chime in on this subject? So Lana, I will ask you something directly. I hate to put you on the spot, but you are, I happen to know you worked for AA until very recently for AISD, as both a teacher and an administrator. I'd like to hear what your take on this question is.
So I actually work for the district at this point. I'm at the district level. I actually was not ever an administrator.
Oh, okay.
Thank God.
My
That's okay. You couldn't pay me enough. But yes, I was a teacher for, I don't know how many of my 30 years, but, and I'm still employed there for the next few weeks. Um,
Well, this video hasn't come out yet, so.
oh, I have not been out of I have been out of the classroom for a few years, so I do not know as much about what the most recent programs and curriculum are, but No Place for Hate is very ingrained and well used in Austin ISD. I do know that we also had something called GLSEN a few years back, Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educators Network. But again, that doesn't include all the different identities. So I'm not even sure that GLSEN is a thing anymore. I think though that it really goes, it is, Alex?
We used it a lot for GSA resources. They have a lot for students who want to start it, students who are doing it, teachers who are wanting to start and sponsors it, and teachers who are also doing it. So yeah, it does exist. And GLAD is another good spot.
Mm-hmm. I think though that it also goes back to what Sam was saying. It's just like other marginalized communities. If a teacher can demonstrate by some outward sign or symbol, or just by being, like Alex was talking about, just welcoming and just accepting and just normal conversation with kids, I think that is really where it needs to start, and not so much about bringing in some external program, just finding those few teachers, if you will. And if it's a lot of teachers, that's even better, or an administrator, that's even better, that can build a culture of letting people be seen and letting people feel comfortable and knowing that they will be accepted no matter what. So it's those little things, it's the day-to-day things. I don't think it's so much an external program or curriculum. Of course, curriculum by our State Board of Education would be very nice. But yeah, just day-to-day stuff, let it be known.
Really quick, just to touch on the little subject a little bit. The one thing that I want to add is I recently worked with Jana on some facilities for families applications, and on those applications I was sure to put like female, male, non-binary, and I feel like a way that teachers could help with stuff like that is when I remember when I was in school, like the first week or first 2 days or so, it's like syllabus and introducing each other. And I remember there was a teacher who, I don't remember if it was in college or high school, but who asked like, what was your preferred name if you didn't like your name or whatever, and your preferred pronouns or whatever. So I think that would be something that teachers can contribute into I mean, I don't know. I for one would be okay with it being like as young as they could understand or whatever, because I mean, some kids know, they just know like, hey, like I know who I am, and who I was born is not who I'm supposed to be. So, I mean, if teachers that teach younger ages could be understanding and somehow bring that into a works, or it be able, them allow it to be into the educational field, that I think that's something that would help us a lot and would help a lot of children, and that would be a way to let them know that there's somebody that they could talk to.
Springboarding off of what Sabi said with the adding pronouns or preferred name onto like a syllabus thing, or even just in like if a teacher does introductions in a class just kind of as like icebreakers, even if there's a fear of are they too young to know, I feel like that is not a good mentality to have towards it, because even if developmentally they're not quite there yet, it can still foster a conversation which will educate them about certain issues in an environment that doesn't really allow for hostility to kind of fly. So it's like, even if say they're later elementary school, they got enough going on up there where they're like, pronouns, names. So it's kind of like, I feel like it can still facilitate a conversation that is very much needed in an environment where hate speech and slurs and things of that nature can be moderated. Sammy might have more to that, but that's just my opinion.
I think that we can model with pronouns in every situation of our lives. Teachers can model in a classroom by introducing themselves and using their pronouns, or having a pronoun pin. I have my pronouns on my email signature at work. Every Zoom meeting I'm in, I update to include my pronouns. And that includes, queer space Zoom meetings, that includes work meetings, that includes, I work for Dell. Dell Technologies World is going on this week. I had to jump in and be a chat moderator, and I added my pronouns to my name inside of my Dell Technologies profile. There's not, that when we talk about normalizing these conversations, that's a way to normalize the conversation.
I will brag on Austin ISD. We recently started using Canvas, the learning management system, Canvas, I guess about 4 years ago. And we've now given kids the opportunity to list their pronouns on their name in Canvas. So that's fantastic.
Bravo.
Thank you all. So it's 8:11. We have time for one more question. There's, and I apologize to the crowd, but I'm going to ask a question that is not quite the most popular, but one I think it should be asked. And here it goes. For LGBTQ plus, who are also BIPOC, right? Black, Indigenous, people of color. Do you notice a difference in how you are treated by white members of the LGBTQ community? And I think, and if you're not BIPOC, just reverse it, right? And if you've noticed any differences in the way people have been treated. And I know we've touched on it a little bit earlier on, but I'd like to kind of expand that subject. Whoever would like to start first, please do. Or I'm going to pick on Sabi. Okay, there you go.
Chuck, can you clarify what you mean by reverse it?
So you may not. So the question is asking is, as a person of the LGBTQ plus community and a BIPOC, have you noticed a difference, right? So what I'm saying is, I'm not going to limit the question that way. I'm going to say, have you noticed a difference in the way LGBTQ people of color are treated as opposed to people in that same community that are not of color? And is that something that's of issue within the community itself? Does that make it a little bit more understandable?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, Sabi, that's you then.
But okay, really quick, I wasn't sure. Does that even include me, or am I doing the reverse? Because I know I know.
So you are Hispanic,
Okay.
right? And you are gay, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Right? And you know white people, right?
Yes. Okay.
who are gay, right? So
yes. So I guess
see a difference.
I guess for me, some instances that's happened is, I don't know if this is the right thing, but if I'm understanding the question correctly, I have been in a restaurant with a same two white girls obviously dating, and had the same waiter as them and been treated totally different just because me and my partner are speaking Spanish, or because my partner is obviously I could pass for white, which is something that Jessie brings up to me a lot. They always mention to me that I could probably I don't know what that word is called, where I
white passing.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm like, no. And you know what's funny? The same day that they mentioned that to me, we end up going to James Avery, and we get skipped 3 times. And I'm just like, but I could pass as white, right? But I could pass as white. And I'm like, so it's just little stuff like that, I guess, that where you can see that other people are more accepting of white LGBT community people, whereas being Hispanic or Black, Asian, anybody else who's a minority would get, I guess, more looks. And I'm not trying to like play like a game of who gets it worse or whatever, but I personally have experienced it. But I've also been on the side where I do pass and have seen other people like I have a Black friend, Candace, that I used to work for, and she happens to be gay, who we will go to the store, and just because we're not like right next to each other or we're not like in the same section, she get followed or get treated different or something like that just for being Black or whatever. And it's just little things like that makes it to where I don't know where I was going with it, but those things on the question. Somebody else go.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is a great question around a term we call intersectionality, right? So intersectionality, I forget the name of the woman who created. I'm sorry, I've got COVID brain, so I don't know what day of the week it is. I know it's today. Yesterday was before today, and tomorrow is after. The concept of intersectionality is that we are not the same way we were talking earlier about, middle school or high school. You're worried about math. It's like you're not just gay or lesbian or trans or pan or it's you might be in an after school sport. You might be a basketball player and you're struggling in math, and you're also queer. And when we talk about the intersection of identities, this is one of those places where, there's your sexual orientation, there's your gender identity, there is your ethnic identity, there is your race, there the misogyny of the world at large, right? So just walk through the world as someone who walked through the world being perceived as female for 43 years and has now walked through the world being perceived as male for 4 years. The stories I could tell, we could be here all night. So I think the short answer to that question is there absolutely, like, racists come in every orientation and identity. There are racists in every identity, like, on the spectrum. And so, yes, BIPOC people, LGBTQ people get treated differently than white LGBTQ people, and sometimes bi within the community, right? But one of this year in particular has engendered so many more conversations around intersectionality, and something for those that have joined us tonight to think about is, I've heard many friends talk about having to make a choice of which identity they have to sit in these conversations, right? So Sabby, you were just in that situation, right, where you had to lean in to say, here's where I felt, or a situation when I was feeling Hispanic, right, or when I was being treated because of my perceived race. And sometimes that might be compounded by being perceived as queer or gay, in addition to that. But so many Black, Indigenous, and persons of color talk about it very rarely being able to be both. They have to show up and be in one identity or the other, and that is that adds even more cognitive layers of dissonance and weight someone has to carry around, is trying to figure out where people are going to attack you from, right? Like where are my risk factors, where are my vectors of where I need to have my defenses up in this space. And so it's I would encourage everyone to lean into those conversations and pay attention, and either, if you're on Twitter, follow someone who has intersectional identities on Twitter or on LinkedIn, and understand what kind of conversations that they're having. Madison Butler is here in Austin. She's phenomenal. I highly recommend following her on LinkedIn. She will she tells it exactly like it is. She is a Black, queer, female person, and she's just fantastic. So I'm not Black. I'm not a person of color. I don't have that experience, and so it's my responsibility to go out and listen to those voices and understand what those experiences are and how I don't further that trauma. Right? How do I become part of that solution in a welcoming and inclusive society that is meant to that's meant to support and love everyone.
I think to
Well said.
me, I'm sorry, just a real quick thought about when we talked earlier about Black transgender women and the death rate that has skyrocketed, particularly over the last couple of years, it seems. To me, that's a perfect illustration of the intersectionality and the layers that are built in there, because just think of the three things: Black, transgender, and I don't know, it's just so
Female.
many. Female, thank you.
Like it's yes, the violence
Thank
is so
you.
based in misogyny there. So
Yes,
no.
thank you. That's just that's, to me, that's so many examples, so many layers that's perhaps leading to why there's so much violence against Black transgender women.
All right. Well, thank you. I mean, that's our time. Actually, we're a little over. We're about 5 minutes over. So I want to thank all of the panelists today. This has been wonderful. I've learned a lot actually in participating in this, and I hope that everybody else has as well. I also want to thank our planning committee. That's Larry and Marion Cobran, Jessica Sabani, Marissa Palmer, Kelly McGinty, Linda Schaefer, and Marissa, am I leaving anybody out? Oh, Toya McClurkin.
Yeah, I just couldn't get unmuted. Irma.
and Irma Collins for helping out as well. Also, next month on the 18th, I believe, that Wednesday, Marissa, help me out again. We're having the Indigenous experience will be our next subject. Is that the 18th?
I believe so, because we wanted it before the Thanksgiving Day holiday.
So on the 18th, we'll be discussing issues and just a subject matter affecting Indigenous Americans. We have a good panel for that as well. If you've registered or if you attended today, you'll be automatically registered for the next one. So I hope that we will see you then and there. All right.
Just since Chuck forgot to do the plug, in the chat, there is a link to, if you'd like to get one of the t-shirts that Chuck's wearing, you can donate and you will get a t-shirt. And oh yeah, you see,
there's a link. That link will show you what the shirt actually looks like, so you don't have to imagine this huge shirt on you. For the panelists, you will receive one for free. So some of you have your t-shirt sizes. Alex, you're too recent an arrival. I don't know. So just text me and let me know what size you wear and where to send it to. And I'll get those out to you. And everybody else, I'm sorry, you have to pay. Right? It helps us to put these programs on and get the recordings edited and that sort of thing. So
thank you all so much. Obviously, Chuck has his mic on. So thank you all so much. Chuck had asked me to reach out to somebody from the older community, and I reached out. My contacts are in New York, and he said, I'm really sorry, I'm busy, but he left me with one thought. He goes, I would imagine it's kind of hard to find us. There was kind of a purging in the 80s because he had gone through the HIV/AIDS, and I had not ever thought of it that way. And it gave me a really new perspective of a sort of, I hate to use this word because it's really, but a infectious disease form of genocide. So.
Yes.
Can I recommend like a movie that kind of touches on that, the AIDS pandemic? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Go for it. I'll even put the link.
Of course, I'm so young. I never had to live through it. I don't really know how accurate of a portrayal is. I do know it's based off a memoir. So there's that. There's also a book version of it, but it's called Holding the Man. And I believe it's based on Australia. And it's basically these two men who contracted HIV and lived through it. I did not know that going into it. So it was very jarring to kind of want a very lighthearted movie and then to be like, oh my God, okay, here we go.
Right.
I do recommend watching it because, like Marissa said, it does kind of, in this day and age, we kind of forget like, oh, this really did happen. And it was for lack of a better word, a genocide against gay people, specifically gay men. So it's a good book, and I have yet to read the memoir, but okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Okay. Well, like I said, I hope to see everybody next month, and please enjoy the rest of your evening.